Welcome back. My name is Laura-Hollis. I'm a clinical professor of entrepreneurship and public policy at the University of Illinois, and this is the second in a series, 9 points in 9 minutes or less. Today's topic is 9 myths about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. The purpose of this video is to debunk some of the misapprehensions that people have about entrepreneurship. Myth number 1. Entrepreneurship is a young person's game. In fact, most successful entrepreneurs are either in college or right out of it. Not true. In fact, this is a myth that's been popularized by people like Max Levchin of PayPal, Michael Dell of Dell Computers, Bill Gates. But in fact, a study conducted by the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City, Missouri revealed that the average age of a first-time entrepreneur, and certainly in the high technology sector, is 39. This means, of course, since it's an average, that as many people who start a business for the first time are over 40 as are younger than that. Myth number 2, successful entrepreneurs are those who come up with creative or utterly original ideas to start their own businesses. Not true. In fact, although it depends on what you mean by creative or original, most of the statistics will show that somewhere between 70 and 90% of the ideas for new businesses come from an entrepreneur's previous employment experience. In other words, the more experience you get working for someone else, the more likely you are to come up with an idea to start your own business. And in fact, this makes sense. If the average age of a first-time entrepreneur is around 40, they've spent about 20 years, give or take, working for someone else. Myth number 3. This is my personal pet peeve. Entrepreneurs are motivated by greed or money. Absolutely not true. In fact, not just false, but way, way off. In fact, most entrepreneurs are motivated by a desire to work for themselves, to have more autonomy over their lives, and have a passion to solve problems, often deeply entrenched, difficult human problems. Even the most successful entrepreneurs will tell you, if you're in it for the money, get out now, because entrepreneurship is in fact more difficult than working for someone else, and you'll, generally speaking, make less money. But we'll get to that myth in a second. Myth number 4. Most successful entrepreneurs, especially in high-tech companies, have PhDs in science. Also not true. In fact, if you look at the statistics, 6% of U.S.-born tech company founders have a high school diploma or less. 2% have an associate's degree, some college, or perhaps a certificate of some sort. 44% have a bachelor's degree. 30% have a master's. 4% have an MD. 4% have a law degree. And in fact, only 10% of high-tech company founders have a PhD. Myth number 5. Entrepreneurs are born different. Also not true. In fact, a good number of people that become very successful entrepreneurs never thought of themselves as entrepreneurs and never, in fact, planned to be entrepreneurs. Some of these opportunities just sort of fell into their laps, as it were. There is, in fact, a correlation between certain personality types or psychological attributes and being entrepreneurial, such as the ability to take calculated risks, etc. But it seems from the research that we've seen that people are as likely to have acquired these skills or traits as to have been born with them. And in fact, we know that some of the most significant attributes that are associated with entrepreneurial success, most notably self-efficacy or an internal sense of control, can be taught. In fact, you don't necessarily have to have been born with that. Myth number 6. To be successful, an entrepreneur needs a degree in business. No, not true. Although there are any number of self-employed people that do have business degrees in management, finance, or accounting, there's a stronger correlation between degrees in the sciences or engineering even than in business. According to a recent study, 34% of U.S.-born founders of high technology companies had degrees in business, but 47% of founders have what we call STEM degrees, which is to say degrees in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. Myth number 7. Most entrepreneurs are millionaires. No. Sorry about this one. In fact, If you look at the data, it's discouraging rather than encouraging in terms of becoming an entrepreneur. Most new businesses fail. In fact, most of them fail within the first 5 years of their founding. The average self-employed person earns quite a bit less than he or she is working for someone else. Entrepreneurs work more hours on average than the person who works for someone else. So although we hear about the millionaires, in fact, those are the exception, not the rule. Myth number 8. You can't be an entrepreneur without venture capital. Entrepreneur, absolutely not. Most startups never get venture capital. In fact, only 0.03% of new companies ever receive venture capital. On average, the amount of money it takes to launch a startup is somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. It's not pocket change, but it's not a king's ransom either. The most common source of this money is an entrepreneur's savings, not banks, and not even loans from family or friends. That said, 65% of entrepreneurs finance their companies using some form of personal debt, either a second mortgage on their house, credit cards, that sort of thing. Fewer than 1 in 12 startups ever gets investment money, which is to say equity financing, from family or friends. And finally, myth number 9, entrepreneurs are happier than those who work for other people. Okay, this one's true. So this is not a myth. So despite some of the things that I've said today about the amount of hours that entrepreneurs work and the fact that entrepreneurs tend not to make as much as those who work for other people, it depends on what you're looking at. So why, in fact, if they work more hours and they don't necessarily make as much money, are people who are entrepreneurs happier? Well, in fact, they report higher job satisfaction, substantially higher. In fact, almost 20% higher than those who work for other people. And the reason for this is autonomy, flexibility, a sense of greater impact, and a sense of greater control. That concludes this 9 points in 9 minutes or less lecture. See you next time.